come and go to your small mom and pop locations anywhere throughout the state. We break down our retailers in regions. There's a congressional district, and I can't remember if it's the newer congressional district or what the congressional district was when it started. So when you see region 1, 2, 3, and 4, that is literally talking about the congressional districts. That's how we're broken down. It's just the easiest and most identifiable way to do that. You'll hear a little bit later on in the presentation about how we intend to hopefully stabilize and grow sales incrementally. We're a little bit underserved in some of these areas, but you can see the breakdown of where our most retailers are and where we need to do some work, where we're saturated and not saturated. Instant ticket sales over the course of time, I wanted to kind of give you a breakdown of how those have fluctuated over time and a breakdown of what we make for revenue off of each individual price point. So as you can see, fiscal year 10 is a little bit of an anomaly because it's when we started up and we weren't selling certain types of tickets at that point. But if you started fiscal year 2011, you can see we reached almost our all-time high, 388. The next year we made about $4 million more. After that is when what you call the honeymoon period with the lottery began to end. And some of it was related to some of the things that came up. Some of it's just the natural, gradual life of a lottery to where you have a huge arc at the beginning and then you slowly, gradually drop and then you take back off with incremental growth. Unfortunately, we didn't have a subtle drop. We had a pretty big drop in about a 2-year span. The good news is this year we're projected to have about $10 million in instant ticket growth, which is our first growth in about 2.5 years, which tells me obviously there's a healthier economy here in Arkansas, and I think some of the things we've done with our instant ticket program have been working. So 8 out of the 10 months that we've had so far this fiscal year, instant tickets have been up. And why that's important is instant tickets are really one of the main things that we can control. The multi-state games are jackpot driven, and I'll show you here in a minute about sales for those, but the things that we can actually plan, set, and control, we're having some growth on. So we're very pleased with that. We'd like more growth, but the first positive growth in 2.5 years is great. As you can see over to the right, or left, however you're looking at it, we sell 1, 2, 3, 5s, 10s, and 20s. Obviously, the 5s and 10s, because of the way we matured, sell more and are big games. And one of the things that we did, again, is to drop some of the 20s off the market and reduce those, and that pushes people down to the 10s and 5s, which is a higher margin game. That kind of gives you an idea of how much we make from a revenue standpoint off of each price point. And when I say price point, $1 for a $1 ticket, that's what we call them in the industry, another industry term. Powerball sales. This is something that I really want to reinforce with this committee, and it's something that really makes or breaks our year every year. Powerball sales, the highest we've ever had is $47 million. The lowest we've ever had is probably going to be this year. Why are those so important when it's only 30 or $40 million out of the grand scheme of $410 million? We make 50 cents off of every dollar spent on Powerball tickets. They're a higher margin game. Those players go after the jackpots. The margin is very high. So, but the flip side is they're jackpot driven. People don't get all that excited about a $50 million jackpot now. It has to be a $300 million jackpot. It is a national game. 44 states sell Powerball. Every single state is experiencing significant reductions in sales of Powerball and Mega Millions. Powerball is up 45% as of the last quarter of the last fiscal year. And when I say 45%, we're talking about $800 million nationwide. It's a huge problem. We have a voting block that we have kind of created of some of the smaller states where we, obviously, if you have a state that has 20 million people and you have a state that has 3 million people, they want different things out of that game. And we have joined forces with some of the smaller states to try and form a voting block to make those games do what would benefit us. And I think it's working. We've got it. They tried to change the game back in October last year. We got that turned over. And so hopefully there's going to be some progress in that. it gives you an idea of the fluctuations and why when I come in here or when Director Walter comes in here and Powerball just hasn't performed, we don't look like we know how to budget something, but I don't know what it's going to do 12 months ahead of time. And sometimes we're smart, sometimes we don't. And we're at the mercy of those games. Mega Millions, exact same issue. I think as you can see, we got to a high of $25 million, dipped down to about $13 million the next year, got back up to $19 million this year, or last year, and we're probably going to come in at about $14 million this year. And again, same margin on those games. We make nice money off of them, we experience these sales boosts, and they're not seasonal. I mean, they're based on when the jackpot is big. So in a slow month, where we typically don't sell, if we have a big jackpot, our sales go up and it's a nice boost. Unfortunately, we don't have a voting right in this game, but it's experiencing some of the same problems as Powerball. It's down 25% nationally. So again, it's not an Arkansas issue, it's a national issue, and hopefully it will be corrected as well. Transfers, the transfer analysis for ADHE over the course of the 5 years of the lottery. First fiscal year was not a full fiscal year. We returned $82 million that year. We started in September of 2009. The next year, we actually made 94, but we had to transfer $20 million over the shortfall account. So the credited return is 74. Our highest year was my first year as director. We made $97 million. And then we dipped down to 90 and down to 81. So far, year to date, we're at about 58.7. We are a little bit below our budget. If we were to finish the next 2 months based on our budget, we would hit right at 75.1 or 2, which is about $3 million under our budget of 78.1. We do have, strangely enough, a Powerball and Mega Millions games are aligned at this point at around $100 to $150 million to maybe give us a run near the end of the fiscal year. Just keep our fingers crossed that we get some revenue out of that, but if we don't, we'll probably end up right at about 75 or a little bit more. Some of the numbers since we started, just to give you an idea, our total sales are $2.5 billion over the 5+ years that we've operated. Total prizes is a surprising number for everybody. Prizes are what makes the game sell. Our prizes are $1.57 billion. And that goes from $1 prizes all the way up to the highest prize we ever had, was about $25 million for Powerball, January 2010. Total scholarships, the most important number that we've raised so far. Just this month, we crested above the $500 million mark and have given $505 million for scholarships, which is a huge, huge landmark for us. This number is a little bit low. We don't have the current numbers, but I think we've educated or helped to fund over $150,000 for 150,000 scholarships since we started. Latest numbers were 133, but that's, I believe, last fiscal year. Where your lottery revenue goes, this is one of those things that kind of surprises people sometimes. That big Pac-Man chunk of that pie right there is game prizes. Our game prizes are 66% of what our game prizes are 66% of what pays out of every dollar. And if you don't have prizes and people don't win, they're not going to play. We're a little bit on the high end, but the Camelot noted that. And hopefully with the reduction in the number of 20s on the market, we will correct that. The good thing about the lottery is with the exception of gaming costs, which comprise about 5%, 95 cents of every dollar in some form or fashion goes back into the economy here in Arkansas in the form of a scholarship, a retail commission, a prize, something along those lines. Other functions we have so far today, we've collected over $38.7 million in federal taxes, and we've collected over $10.6 million in state taxes through our winners. We're also tasked with the duty of collecting unpaid taxes that are owed to DF&A. We have collected over $1.1 million so far in 5 years. Generally, people aren't very happy when we do that, but they hope today can take their money. Child support, another thing that some people don't get all that happy. I guess one party's happy, the other's not so much. We've collected $356,000 in unpaid child support over the course of 5 years. So there's some good things that we do along those lines as well. The Director Walter and I, the Governor and Governor's staff have had several visits about this. How is it that, even though we're waiting on putting an RFQ out for a consultant, how is it in the short term that we can improve and stabilize what we're doing? And obviously, preparing a business plan and coming up with ways to maintain cash flow and ideas for future growth and cost controls. We've come a long way with the cost controls over the last few months with the RIF and reductions in that. That's something that we're working on right now, and we will partner with whoever it is selected under the RFQ to continue to do that. What we want to do is also increase our retailer count. We underperform a little bit from a national average on our number of retailers. We want to go to those areas that are underserved, which is particularly northwest and northeast Arkansas, but there are other places, and build our retailer network in those areas. If you build your retailer network, for each retail outlet, we sell about $4,400 a week. So you do the math on adding 25 or 50 retailers over the course of a year. That's something that would be real growth. We also need to work on the online sales lag and addressing the nationwide drop. We meet almost monthly with the Multi-State Association. I'm on the legal committee. We're doing everything we can from a voting block standpoint to make sure that the game is changed in the ways that would benefit our state, and hopefully we will see progress along those lines. One of the big criticisms that we've had over the past 5 years is that our vendor contracts were too much, or they weren't set up to where it was the most benefit for us. And so what we want to do is get with whoever it is that is selected, for them to come in and actually look and show us if it's a better way to structure the services we get and the prices we pay under those contracts. So hopefully, if there's any help to be made, we can get help with that. And also continue on the course of rebranding and continue our marketing plan as we have over the last year, and continue to see positive things from that as well. I think that is all that.
Are you going to address where we're at year to date? I seen that you had put something up there about where your net was, and that was a little different, I thought, than what I had. But did you say that you were at like 58 million for the year? Is that for 10 months ending, or?
Yes, sir. I believe that's April 2015. It does not account for the unclaimed prizes.
Okay. For whatever reason, on the sheet that we sent out for 10 months ending, you were showing and this was after your interest income, was 60,452,000.
Okay.
And now that does not have unclaimed prizes in it.
That's correct.
Okay. So because I've done try to annualize some things out to see where we may fall in within the next 2 months. So
whatever's in your LLC report is
so the one, this is the correct, the
Yes,
60,452,000 for the 10 months. Okay. Representative Bragg, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you walk me through the process of how the money flows from somebody turns a dollar into the cashier? How does it get to the student?
Yes, sir. Starting at the retail location, if you hand the clerk $1, that goes into a designated separate account that they hold for the lottery. And every Thursday, based on your sales, what you paid out for cashing prizes, you get a commission. And you get a 5% cash or a 5% selling commission, 1% cashing commission. So every Thursday, we sweep that account, less what we owe you. That is put into our account at Bank of the Ozarks. At the end of every month, we zero out. At the end of every month, we do all of our expenses, and whatever's left over is scholarship proceeds. Those proceeds are placed into a trust account. And about twice a year, and Harold may be able to tell you from ADHE, may be able to tell you better, usually in October and February, we get a request from the Department of Higher Education for the money. And usually the big request is in October, smaller request in February. So they award scholarships in the summer, and then once they see who actually shows up and claims them in October, we pay them and they pay the colleges. That's my understanding of how it works.
Does the student actually do they actually get a check, or is it a credit to the college? Or,
I'll hand that one off to Harold. After that, we don't, I'm not sure.
Harold Criswell will be coming up on the last agenda item. I think it is the college, but we can question that.
I get one follow-up.
Yes, sir.
I'm just curious, on the payout of the 66.5% that goes to the payout, and I'm just curious, does the actual person that buys the ticket know what the actual payout is? Would it make a difference if it were 66 or 60 or?
The difference is they actually feel the payout. One of the things that Camelot said in their report, and I think there was a question about payouts, and they said if you reduce the payouts, your players will evaporate overnight because they feel it. And one of our biggest, one of the best things we have going for us is our retailers. A player will walk in, and a lot of them will say, which one of these tickets is winning the most? And since the retailers actually pay them, they know, and they'll tell them, buy that $5 over there. And so it's just like driving to Tunica, and you see the billboard that says we've got to lose the slots. That's where they're going, because it's the highest payout.
Okay, thank you.
Members have any other questions in regards to this agenda item? Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to clear something up for me, I got to find it real quick. It seemed like same info in two different places, but it was two different numbers on salary savings. In one place we had 554,000 in savings. I think it said from 012 to 14, and then later we had 900,000 in salary savings.
If you add the 400 from the RIF and the 554 from closing the claim centers,
Is that where you got 900? Okay. So if I added, so I just made a quick list, and I don't know if, I'm just asking if any of these numbers were duplications or if we could add all these up, but just in, I guess since we moved over to DFNA, or maybe including the year before that, we had 475,000 in savings from one of the action last session where we reduced the gambling help and compensation ADHE, 400,000 from the RIF, 554,000 from salary savings, 600,000 by closing regional claim centers, and then 50,000 from OAL and internal audit. So could I add all that up, or is there any duplication in
I
that?
think that was all, you could add all of that, that would be the correct number.
Okay, I think y'all ought to add that up and throw that number around a little bit. All right, thank you.
Okay, I believe you're next on the agenda. I will move to D. This is the proposed 16 budget.
Yes, sir. I'm looking at the Arkansas Planning Budgeting Administrative System form. This is a DFA form that we now put our budget into. And so, in some ways, it's a little bit different, so I'll explain why there's some peculiarities in there. Overall, we submitted a budget that would increase net proceeds by about $1.4 million versus what our budget is this year. A lot of that has to do with what Representative Davis just noted, which is reductions in costs. We've accounted for the fact that the online sales will probably continue to drop a little bit until we can get those curtailed and turned around. We've asked for a modest increase in instant ticket increases, or instant ticket sales. So that's how we arrived kind of at the overall budget. As you can see on this planning and budgeting system sheet, the actual payroll has been reduced from 82 to 71 employees, and from 4.7 to 3.9 in this budget. Matching, which goes along with payroll because of the reductions in force, is reduced by about $280,000. Our operating expenses, and Senator Hickey raised this, and I don't want to jump too far ahead. Previously, we included our travel and conference amounts in our operating expenses, so that's why you see zero to the left in the 2014. It was 13, 14, and 14, 15, and it's 202,000, which is broken out in the new one. So there's not really an increase in that. $197,000 or $198,000 of that is our marketing sales representative mileage payments. So it's kind of a misnomer. Most of it is mileage for our people out in the field driving around, and we don't go to a lot of conferences. But it is, I don't know the exact number from last year, but it is not, it may be $1,000 growth, if any. My Operating expenses again, that's the lease, and things of that nature, which is about $400,000, office supplies. That has been reduced, partly because we took the travel out of that, so there's a reduction of probably about net $200,000 in that. Professional fees we pay has been reduced by about $250,000, $60,000. And those are ADHE and legislative auditing expenses. That's what that reduction relates back to, the statutory things that we talked about. Reading on the right. Data processing is what we pay to DIS and what we will pay for the order pad software, or the software that we intend to buy to help the MSRs do their job. Instant games, $236 million, that is the prizes that we anticipate based on the sales of the instant games. For online games, which are the draw games, our prizes would be $39 million, a little over $39 million. And retailer commissions will stay somewhat the same based on the sales remaining somewhat the same. We generally pay out about 5.6% to our retailers. Gaming contracts, as you can see, drops from $20,500,000 to $19,249,000. That goes back to the renegotiation with Infralot, which would result in about a $1.3 or $4 million reduction a year, I believe. Advertising and promotions, our budget last year was $5 million. We asked that we keep that budget at $5 million. Capital outlay, I'm not on camera. What is capital outlay? Capital outlay, I believe, is what we're buying to do computers, I believe, is what. Sorry, my CFO is getting his CPUs today. So, if you go down to our funding sources, instant tickets we anticipate will increase. It's a very modest increase, about $2 or $3 million. That will be on top of what we've seen this year, so hopefully we'll continue the trend. Online games, again, we're dropping those by $8 million based on the sales trends we've seen. I hope I'm wrong, but we want to be as conservative as we can in our budgeting to make sure that you have an accurate number. Retailer applications will remain somewhat the same. We'll have the same number of retailers applying, hopefully, and retain those retailers. Non-gaming revenue, that's $10,000. Typically, sometimes we'll get an insurance refund and things along those lines. That's what that line item is for. Other income, as you can see, we've had a huge amount of other income of $461,000 2 years ago. That's not a good thing. It was reimbursement for that theft. So we won't have any of that. So that's why it's zero on the current budget. Transfer to the Department of Health for the compulsive gambling was $200,000. We no longer pay that fee, so that's a reduction of $200,000. Transfer in the ADHE Education Trust, that is what it is. That's Representative Bragg talked about. That's what we transfer actually into the trust account for scholarships. So with our regular sales plus unclaimed prizes, again, that's how we got the $79.5 million for proceeds, which again is about a $1.4 million increase in scholarships, hopefully for the next year. Total funding again, $79 million. Does anyone have any questions? I've kind of ran through that. I'm happy to go through any particular item.
Just for the members, so what are you estimating for this coming year for scholarships?
I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
Oh,
$79.5 million, which is about a $1.4 million increase from last year, from budgeted last year.
That's 79 or 70, okay, you got the unclaimed prizes.
Yes,
okay,
yeah.
74, so it's a 74.5 plus the $5 million on unclaimed prizes. Okay. So that'll be significant here in just a little while, so everybody will need to remember that, because whenever Mr. Criswell gets up here, he'll tell us what the scholarships are, or what they're anticipating those to be. Is that it?
That's all I have for that.
The members, does anybody have any questions in regards to this budget? Seeing no objections, we'll consider it reviewed. And I guess we'll go to item number E. You have an instant ticket agreement?
Yes.